I know I'm going to see you tomorrow, but I have to read to you today. I have a bunch of new books from the library, and I have to read to you today. There's one called Dear Mrs. LaRue, Letters from Obedience School by Mark Teague, written and illustrated. The dog is writing a letter home, and he has 50 great escapes, and he has a dog biscuit in his mouth like a cigar. This looks like a good book. Letters from Obedience School. Oh, and I wonder who that's a picture of. It looks to me like that dog is taking his owner for a walk. I wonder if that's the same dog in this book. It looks like it might be. He's running in front of a bus. Yes, that's what it must be, because that looks like the lady in the picture right here. That must be his owner. But we're about to see. Oh, this is too cute for words. These are clippings from a newspaper called The Snort, Register Gazette, September 30th. Local dog enters obedience school. This is too cute for words. Local dog enters obedience school. Oh, it's down here. Ike LaRue. Great name. Ike LaRue. Citing a long list of behavioral problems, Snort City resident Gertrude R. LaRue yesterday enrolled her dog Ike in the Igor Brotweiler Canine Academy. Established in 1953, the academy has a history of dealing with such issues. "I'm at my wit's end," said Mrs. LaRue. "I love Ike, but I'm afraid he's quite spoiled. He steals food right off the kitchen table. Oh, right off the kitchen counter. Chases the neighbor's cats. Howls whenever I'm away, and last week while I was crossing the street he pulled me down and tore my best camel's hair coat. I just don't know what else to do." School officials were unavailable for comment. We see a dog mailing a letter. It looks to me like this obedience school is not a terribly bad place, because we have sauna, pool, happy dogs, and sunshine. But on this side of the page, it looks a bit grim. Darker, black and white, eerie, big castle. Chains on the chains, sort of on the windows of the place. Warning, prisoners on board. This is interesting. And this decrepit sort of cracked stone. Igor Brotweiler Canine Academy. Dear Mrs. LaRue, how could you do this to me? This is a prison, not a school. You should see the other dogs. They are bad dogs, Mrs. LaRue. I do not fit in. Even the journey here was a horror. I am very unhappy and may need something to chew on when I get home. Please come right away. Sincerely, Ike. That was October 1, the day after the article appeared saying that he was arriving. This appears to be him at home with Mrs. LaRue, and it seems to me he's sitting at her place setting, eating her piece of pie, drinking her glass of wine or water, and she's appalled in the background. And here he is in what appears to be rather swanky, nice conditions. I mean, looks like it. Let's see what he says. Dear Mrs. LaRue, were you really so upset about the chicken pie? Oh, it wasn't a peach pie. It was a dinner pie, a chicken pie. You know, you might have discussed it with me. You could have said, Ike, don't eat the chicken pie. I'm saving it for dinner. Would that have been so difficult? It would have prevented a lot of hard feelings. Needless to say, I'm being horribly mistreated. You say I should be patient and accept that I'll be here through the term. Are you aware that the term lasts 2 months? Do you know how long that is in dog years? This is really cute. Sincerely, Ike. Now, I'd like to point out he has a beautiful picture window. Let's see if you can see this. A lamp decorated with dog biscuits. Beautiful view out of his window. He has a mantelpiece. He has property of his own. He has a brush and biscuits and fancy dog food. He has a typewriter. It appears he has his own room. But he is dreaming of home. Looks to me like the cats are not fond of this individual dog named Ike. Oh, holding out cat food. That's a curious image. This is what, of course, he's thinking. Dear Mrs. LaRue, October 3rd. I'd like to clear up some misconceptions about the Hibbins cats. First, they are hardly the little angels Mrs. Hibbins makes them out to be. Second, how should I know what they were doing out on the fire escape in the middle of January? They were being a bit melodramatic, don't you think? The way they cried and refused to come down. It's hard to believe they were really sick for 3 whole days, but you know cats. I'm not liking this dog one little bit. Your dog, Ike. Well, they weren't coming down because the dog was holding their food and he was going to scare them. And it was snowing. This little Ike. Mischievous. Dear Mrs. LaRue, October 4th. You should see what goes on around here. The way my warden, Miss Klondike, barks orders is shocking. Day after day, I'm forced to perform the most meaningless tasks. Today, it was sit and roll over all day long. I flatly refuse to roll over. It's ridiculous. I won't do it. Of course, I was severely punished. And another thing, who will help you cross the street while I'm away? You know you have a bad habit of not looking both ways. Think of all the times I've saved you. Well, there was that one time anyway. I must say you weren't very grateful, complaining on and on about the tiny rip in your ratty old coat. But the point is, you need me. That's what Ike is saying. And here is Ike. The pictures are splendid. There is his horrible teacher, he calls it, and she looks as nice as can be, with well-trained dogs, and she's patting them and smiling at them and talking to them and giving them dog biscuits. Not exactly what one thinks of with a warden. And he has his own living room. Look at the views, the warm sunshine outside. He has a notepad with a pencil, a book with gruesome prison tales. Let's see what else we find. And then over here, we see how he's portraying it. Solitary confinement, prison guards. A little bit different than the reality, it would seem. Here we have in black and white his portrayal. I'm taking away his typewriter. He's locked in prison with a mouse or a rat. It's probably a rat. He's chained up. He's in prison clothes. And over here, we see the actual reality. He looks quite comfortable. The book he's reading is Nasty Dungeons of the World. He has more gourmet dog food and a chewy biscuit, a radio, a blender. He's got a smoothie right there. Let's see what his letter says. Dear Mrs. LaRue, the guards here are all caught up in this good dog, bad dog thing. I hear it constantly. Good dog, Ike. Don't be a bad dog, Ike. Is it really so good to sit still like a lummox all day? Nevertheless, I refuse to be broken. Miss Klondike has taken my typewriter. She claims it disturbs the other dogs. Does anybody care that the other dogs disturb me? Yours, Ike. Delightful book. Looks to me like the food conditions are as splendid as can be. But this is how he's describing it. Dear Mrs. LaRue, were the neighbors really complaining about my howling? It is hard to imagine. First, I don't howl that much. You were away those nights, so you wouldn't know, but trust me, it was quite moderate. Second, let's recall that these are the same neighbors who were constantly waking me up in the middle of the afternoon with their loud vacuuming. I say we all have to learn to get along. This is funny. My life here continues to be a nightmare. You wouldn't believe what goes on in the cafeteria. Sincerely, Ike. P.S. I don't want to alarm you, but the thought of escape has crossed my mind. Well, this is a mischievous little dog, isn't he? Mrs. LaRue, I hate to tell you this, but I am terribly ill. It started in my paw, causing me to limp all day. Later, I felt queasy so that I could barely eat dinner, except for the yummy gravy. Then I began to moan and howl. Finally, I had to be taken to the vet. Dr. Wilfrey claims that he can't find anything wrong with me, but I am certain I have an awful disease. I must come home at once. Honestly, yours, Ike. There he is writing in quite luxurious, caring conditions. But of course, this is how he portrays it. Rottweiler Pumpkin Festival. He's reading The Birdman of Alcatraz. I would say this is about the most fun image I've ever seen. A pumpkin festival for dogs. You've been to a pumpkin festival. This looks amazing. These are happy dogs, except for Ike. This is how he's portraying it. Dear Mrs. LaRue, thank you for the lovely get well card. Still, I'm a little surprised that you didn't come get me. I know what Dr. Wilfrey says, but is it really wise to take risks with one's health? I could have a relapse, you know. With fall here, I think about all the fine times we used to have in the park. Remember how sometimes you would bring along a tennis ball? You would throw it and I would retrieve it every time, except for once when it landed in something nasty and I brought you back a stick instead. Ah, how I miss those days. Yours truly, Ike. P.S. Imagine how awful it is for me to be stuck inside my tiny cell. P.P.S. I still feel pretty sick. Look at the tree and the squirrel. He's looking up at the squirrel, which is a pretty happy thing for a dog because it looks to me like he was chasing the squirrel. And look at here. He just has a black bird like a starling or something. Dear Mrs. LaRue, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I have decided to attempt a daring escape. I'm sorry it has come to this since I am really a very good dog, but frankly, you left me no choice. How sad it is not to be appreciated. From now on, I'll wander from town to town without a home or even any dog food, most likely. Such is the life of a desperate outlaw. I will try to write you from time to time as I carry on with my life of hardship and danger. Your lonely fugitive, Ike. The Snort City Register Gazette, October 10th. LaRue escapes doggy detention. Former Snort City resident Ike LaRue escaped last night from the dormitory at the Igor Brotweiler Canine Academy. The dog is described as toothy by local police. I don't know what that means. His current whereabouts are unknown. To be honest, I thought he was bluffing. Oh, it's Mrs. LaRue. I better change my voice. To be honest, I thought he was bluffing when he told me he was planning to escape, said a visibly upset Gertrude R. LaRue, the dog's owner. Ike tends to be a bit melodramatic, you know. Now I can only pray that he'll come back. Asked if she would return Ike to Brotweiler Academy, Mrs. LaRue said that she would have to wait and see. He's a good dog, basically, but he can be difficult. Now, how did he escape? He's in the back of a taxi that says doggone. And then wanted, escaped canine, returned to Igor Brotweiler Academy with a lizard right above the wanted poster. And a cat watching. Oops, it's getting too long. I'll read the next in part 2. I love you, sweetie pie. Well, how many more pages? Oh, no, we just have a few pages. I'll finish it up. Dear Mrs. LaRue, October 11th, somewhere in America. Dear Mrs. LaRue, I continue to suffer horribly as I roam this barren wasteland. Who knows where my wanderings will take me now? Hopefully to some place with yummy food. Remember the special treats you used to make for me? I miss them. I miss our nice, comfy apartment, but mostly I miss you. Your sad dog, Ike. P.S. I even miss the Hibbins cats, in a way. Now, what I'm wondering is all this time when I've been saying, this is the reality, and this is what he imagines or describes it to be, maybe this is what he describes it to be, and this is what he dreams it to be. Could be I'm clueless about yet another children's book. We'll have your mom explain it, and then I'll know for sure. There's a lot of things your mom explains to me. A lot. He's hitchhiking to get home. I think this is the reality, and he's imagining or describing these things because he's on a train. He's got headsets on and chocolate-covered raisins or some such thing and a drink with a straw in it and ice. Dear Mrs. LaRue, October 12th, still somewhere. The world is a hard and cruel place for a stray dog. You would scarcely believe the misery I've endured, so I have decided to return home. You may try to lock me up again, but that is a risk I must take, and frankly, even more than myself, I worry about you. You may not know it, Mrs. LaRue, but you need a dog. Your misunderstood friend, Ike. The Snort City Register, October 13. Hero dog saves owner. Ike LaRue, until recently a student at the Igor Brotweiler Canine Academy, returned to Snort City yesterday in dramatic fashion. In fact, he arrived just in time to rescue his owner, Gertrude R. LaRue of 2nd Avenue, from an oncoming truck. Mrs. LaRue had made the trip downtown to purchase a new camel's hair coat. Apparently, she neglected to look both ways before stepping out into traffic. Look both ways. That way and that way. That way you're sure there's no cars coming from either place. I'll show you what that means again. Look both ways. That way. That way. Look both ways. Back to the story. The daring rescue was witnessed by several onlookers, including Patrolman Newton Smitzer. He rolled right across 2 lanes of traffic to get at her, said Smitzer. It was really something. I haven't seen rolling like that since the time I left the police academy. Rolling? What the hell is rolling? Why wouldn't he just run? Your mom will explain that to us too. Mrs. LaRue was unhurt in the incident, though her coat was badly torn. I don't care about that, she said. I'm just happy to have my Ike back home where he belongs. LaRue said she plans to throw a big party for the dog. All the neighbors will be there, and I'm going to serve Ike's favorite dishes. I like Ike. The cats are not exactly pleased. I'll bet he can't wait to taste the chicken pie. She's thinking as she comes into the room, only to discover he already has. That mischievous little dog. The end. Well, that was a very fun book. I love you, sweetie pie. I hope you have a splendid day, and I don't know about you, but I'm relieved that Nellie and Julep do not act like Ike. I love you, sweetie pie. See you soon. Oops, 22 minutes.